All right, the genius, welcome back. So, let's talk about transforming arrays. So we have some methods in arrays that we use to transform the original array to whatever array we want to. So it is up to you to say, okay, give me this array. I'm going to use some methods on it and I will transform it to my own test. Okay. So now the thing is that in order to have enough examples to teach you this, I broke this thing into two parts. The first part, we'll just be talking about map and reduce method. Then the second part, we'll talk about the sort method, the reverse method, the flat and the flat map method. So if I put everything in one session, it might be too long and you might not grab this thing. So that's why I want to break it down. So the first method we take a look at is the map method, all right? So with the map method, it's used, map method used to apply a function to every element in an array and return a new array. Look at it. With the map method, you give the map method a function, all right? That function you're giving it, all right, would whatever logic you put in that function would change the whole array and return a new array that follows the logic that you gave. All right. So the map function takes a function and it will return a new array. So the new array depends on what is the logic of your function. What is your function going to do to every element in that array? So the map method is used to create a new array by applying a function to each method. So I give you an array now. So you want to use the map function, the map method. So the map method will ask you for a function, that's the parameter to you take a function. So whatever function you give it, it will apply that function, that logic of that function to every element in that array, and then it will return a new array containing the new transformed elements. All right. So this is how it works. The map function takes in something we call a callback. This callback is the function. All right. And this function will have access to the current value, the index, and the array itself. Forget about this, this second argument. It is advanced, all right? We're not talking about this keyword and all those things here. It is very, very advanced. We'll talk about it in JavaScript mastery. So, but look at it. The callback function, all right, when you provide a callback function, the map function is going to give you the current value, the index, and the array, and then you can do whatever you want to do with it. So look at this array now. We have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are calling the map function, and this function we are giving this map method a function, and this function says return the square of every number. And when we did this, we got this. So let me take you, before I continue, let me take you to code. Let me just show you what we just did now. So we are having, okay, I'm taking everything out. So we have this array. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we have in array. So, but we want to transform this array. We want to get the square of every element in this array. So I want to return that as a new array. That means we are going to use the map function and we can call it squared. All right. So now I will call the original array dot map. Then I'm going to provide a function. All right. Like I said, you can actually use the predicate like this. All right. You can actually do something like this, num times num. All right. You can actually do this. It works. But the thing is that it might be confusing for beginners. All right. And if I run this code, I mentioned this thing in the last section. If I run this code, we are going to get the squared. But I would want you to write these things in a way that it would be. So if I run this code now, we are going to get the square of all of them. All right, you see, we got the square of all of them. But instead of doing this, let me just write a real function. Let me write it as a function. So I'll take, this is a callback function and an arrow function. but it must return something. It must return something. So I cannot say return, all right? But I will be having, remember, I will have the current value, which is the norm. I can have the index. Okay, I can also have the array. All right. So I have access to these things in this my function now. I have access to it. All right. So now I can do whatever I want to do. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So here we just want to return the square. So for every element in this array, which is the norm now, we have that every element is inside this norm. Okay, let me just use element. All right, so that it will make more sense. So for all the element, I'm returning the square of, so I will say element times element. All right. So this is a callback. This is an arrow function that is returning something. So this will be the return the new element. So we are taking the old element, each of the elements that we have, one in this case is one and two, three, four. So we are taking each of them and we are transforming it. All right. So let me debug. That is why I said this might take a longer time. That's why I had to break it down. So that, oh, sorry, I didn't put my breakpoint. Okay, so I'll debug again. All right, so the first iteration now we are looping through actually. The first iteration, this element is what? One. All right, this element is one. So, and in this squared, it's an empty array. All right, so I step over. All right, we are here now. All right, so I step over. I step, I step over. Okay, so now the element is now two. So we are iterating on the new element. And our square is an array of, do we have it here? No, it's not here. Okay, it's not here. We would have taken a look at what it is, but of course it will be returned after. So for every element, what are we returning? Okay, okay, let me do this thing. Let me make it. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say for every element, I'm creating a new element. I'll call it square. All right. And this square is going to be this. All right. And what am I returning? I'm returning square. So this will make it easier for us to understand. So I'm going to debug again. Okay. So our first element is what? One. Our square is undefined yet. So when I step over, all right, what do we have in this square now? We have one because one times one is one. So this square will be returned and it will be added into this squared array, this new array that we are going to return. But of course, you're not going to see it now. Okay, now you can see that the first round, which is the first element, one, we are having the square element as element, which is one. Then I step over again. All right, we come back to the second iteration, and the element now is now two. Of course, the square is still one, it's still on left hand is undivided, but if I step over, all right, the square now is what? 4, because 2 times 2 will give us 4. So this square we are returning it and it is being added to this array. So this is what will go on. The third one, 3, okay, the square is now 6. 9, sorry, 3 times 3 is 9, and we are returning it and it will be added to this new array, and then we are going again and again and again, and after that we are up here and you can see our square now is okay, this is what we now have. So for each iteration, this square was being returned and it was being added to this squared array. All right, and that's what we had. Since we have printed, that's what we have here. So I believe you understand this thing, but in case you don't understand, please reach out to us so that we can explain more. Okay, so let's go to our slide. All right, so let's see the next thing we have. So transforming an array of objects. All right, you can also transform an array of objects to your own text. Now look at this. We transformed an array of numbers. You can also do the same thing with an array of strings. Okay, all you have to do is to write your logic, whatever you want to in that your function. How do you want it to be? Do you want to say, if you're working with strings, do you want to say you want to return the first three characters of that string? Do you want to return the uppercase of that. So whatever you want to do. So that's up to you. Now let's see how we can transform an array of objects. We have these users. Okay, this is user Alice, Bob, Charlie. Okay, and when we map through it, you can see here what we are not here. We are not returning the whole user. We are just returning the name only. So because maybe we do not care about the whole name and age, we just want an array that would have the name of our students. All right, we don't need their age, so we are using this map to transform and get another version of the array. So let me take you to code and maybe show you better in an example here. So I would have to. So I have this array called users. And this users is an array of, I have name as John. I have age. I have age as 98. So I'll have a couple of other users. I'll have a couple of other users. All right. So here I will have Biggie. And Biggie is 18. I will have Sarah, and Sarah is 28, and I would have Ben, and Ben is 39. Okay, so now, but right now, let's say I got this data now from the database, but I don't want to use this data like this. I want to transform it to, I just want their names. Okay, so what I can do is that I will have this thing and I will call it names. All right, and these are the names of my users. So I will just say users dot map. Okay, users dot map. Now I'm going to give it a callback function. All right. And in this callback function, remember you will have access to the current value. So I will call it the current value as user. All right. I will have the index. I would also have the array. All right. The users array. So now it's up to me to do whatever I want to do with this. So what do I want to do? I just want to return. User.name. That's what I want to return. All right. And if I console.log, my new array is going to contain just their names. All right, just their names. It's no longer going to contain this whole object. So this is a new one. This one is still valid. It's still here. So if I run this now, you see we only have got their names. In case I want to just return their age, I could just say age. All right. And I will run and I will just get their age instead of their names. Okay, I just got their ages only. Okay, so you can also chain the map method. In short, any method that returns an array, you can also, there's something we call chaining. All right. If a method returns an array, you can call another method on top of that returned array. So it's called chaining. You can chain map with filter or reduce because the map function will still return an array and the filter method can be called on an array. The reduce method can also be called on an array. So the next method we are going to treat is the reduce method. So you can see here, we are calling numbers here. So we actually had, this could be numbers.map, all right? Then dot filter. Okay, here the filter is being called first, then dot map. So this is how you chain array. So let me show you. Okay, right now I have this map. And since this map is returning an array, it's giving me an array of ages, I can also say, since it's returning an array, I can say dot filter. You can see all those array methods are here. I can say array.filter, and I want to filter these arrays based on I will return. I want to filter arrays that are I will return. I want to filter the age. I'm not making use of the index. So I don't need it. So I want to say age. Give me age that is greater than 18. So with this now, these are our names. Of course, forget about the name of the variable. So it's going to return the filtered. You first of all map it. After mapping it, it will now call filter on it. Then it will now return the filtered array. So 18 is no longer going to be available because in our filter logic, we said we want give us all the. Oh, sorry. This is 18, not I8. Oh, sorry. Sorry, JavaScript said no, I don't know what is I8. All right, you can see we do not have the 18 here because we have filtered the 18 out. We said give us filter it and remove anyone that is, just return those ones that are greater than 18. All right, this can be tricky, but please just take your time. And if you don't understand it, please reach out to us. Reach out to us, okay? All right, so this is how you do chaining. I can also chain this filter. I can say filter.find. I can say call this find index. I can do after those, I can do dot. I can dot, then it will give me because it's all of them are returning arrays. Unless they are not returning an array, but if they are returning a new array, you can chain them. Okay, that's what we mean by chaining. All right, so and this is what we got. This is the example I just showed you. All right, so you can also use the map method to modify strings. You have two strings inside of this array, and we are using this map method to convert those strings to uppercase. It's just the simple thing we did with the square numbers. So it's up to you to return the new thing you want to return. I'll leave this one up to you to figure it out. So it's just the same thing. Okay, let me still show you an example. All right, let me show you an example. So, um, um, okay, let's say I'm returning their age. Sorry, I'm returning their name. Okay, and instead of chaining with filter, I want to also chain it with map. Remember now, you can map, you can still map. I want to chain it with map, but this time around, I want to filter. I want to, um, what I want to do here. I want to modify their. Let me say, I'll return this is their name. So here, what am I doing? I want to return the uppercase. I can say to uppercase or to lowercase to uppercase. All right. So you can see I'm chaining two maps. The first map is doing what? Is um, reducing, giving me a new array from these users because it's just giving me their name. So I got the name, then I will now have to map again, and I'm changing all the names to uppercase. So I need you to understand this, but if you don't understand it, please reach out to us. You can see I got John Biggie like this. But if I didn't map this, I will only get their normal listing. But at the end of the day, I'm chaining and I'm actually calling name.uppercase. That's what I'm returning. Okay, all right. So let's go to reduce function. All right, this is I want you to pay close attention. All right, let's pay close attention here. The reduce function, it reduces an array to a single value. It will reduce your array to a single value. So if you want to reduce your array to a single value, you use the reduce function. So the reduce method is used to reduce an array to a single value by applying a function to each element. So the function you're going to apply to each element is going to return everything to a single value. I'm going to show you how. So look at this. It says array.reduce, and it has a callback function and the initial value. All right. Now this is the accumulator. All right, this is the current value, this is the index, this is the array. So let's break them down one by one. The callback function is just a function that runs for each element. All right, this is a callback function that runs for each element. So the accumulator is where you're now storing your results. If you're doing for each element, you're multiplying them, or you're doing whatever you're doing, the result will be stored in the accumulator. And the initial value is basically what the initial value of the accumulator should be. So it starts with the initial value. The accumulator is the result of the previous iterations. So it will start with the initial value. Then the current value is the particular element that is being iterated, all right, being processed, and the index is actually the index of the current value. Then the array is actually optional, but it's the original array, and the initial value is the initial value of the accumulator. It is optional, but it is recommended if you're using it, okay? So, but if you're not using it, it's going to be 0 or empty string or empty object, depending on what you're working with. So I believe you would understand this. The callback function is the function that runs for each element, all right? The accumulator is the result of the previous iteration. So it starts with the initial value. If you give it initial value, the current value is the element that is being processed, and the rest is here. So let's take a look at some examples. So let's say you are being asked, all right, there was a time I had an interview and they asked me some questions. They asked me to write some program that I could have used this reduce method to do, but I didn't get it. You see, that is why I'm making sure I teach you almost everything. It will take a longer time than what other people used to do, all right? It will take a longer time, but you can see you're being taught a lot. So let's see this reduce method. We have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we want to get the sum of the array. We have been doing this kind of thing when we say find the sum of the array. We did it in previous sessions. Find the sum of the array. Then we know how to do loop. We use the for loop and all those things. But right now, since as a big boy now, as a big boy programmer, as a big girl programmer, you can see you're using the reduce function method to do it faster. So we are saying we are calling the numbers dot reduce, and you can see this is the accumulator, this is the number, all right? So, and this is the initial value. So now let's just go to code straight. Let's go to code. All right. So I would take all this out, and I will say this is the numbers. All right. This is the numbers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and we are being asked to get the sum. So we'll say constant sum because the reduce method will return a value for us. We'll say nums, which is the array, dot reduce. Now remember that the reduce will take the callback function. So this is our callback function, and the initial value. The initial value will start from 0. You see, this arrow function is the callback function, and this is the what? The initial value. So the initial value is going to be, we have accumulator, all right? We have the current element, all right? We have the index, and we have the array, the original array. So it's up to you now. But from what we are trying to do here, we are asked to get the sum. So what are we going to do? We are just going to say return. We are going to say return accumulator plus element. Now, guess what? The first time we start this, because remember, this reduce is going to loop through every element. So the first time we start this, all right, this accumulator, the initial value will be what? 0. That is the initial value we gave here. The initial value will be 0. All right. So for the first iteration, this element will be 1. So we're going to return 0 plus 1, which will give us 1. The next iteration, we are now iterating 2. And already the accumulator is now 1 because we are return whatever we return here will be put inside this accumulator. So we started with accumulator 0 and the first element was 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1. It will be stored inside this ACC, this accumulator. We come again, this next element is 2. Our accumulator here is 1. So 1 plus 2, which is the current element, is 3. The 3 will now be stored in this accumulator. Then we come again, the next iteration is 3. So we come, our accumulator is 3, our element is 3. That will be 3 plus 3 will be 6. So the 6 will be stored in this accumulator. The next element is 4. 4 plus our accumulator is 6. So 6 plus 4 will be 10. The next one is 5. Our accumulator is 10. 10 plus 5. That is how it goes. So when we print this sum now, you can see we have written that previous code we used to write in our for loop, where we are looping through the array to get the sum. Oh, sorry, I'm even debugging. You see, we got 15. All right, we got 15. You see? So we have been able to get the sum. If we want to get, let's assume we want to change we want to say we want uh, we want to multiply them. We want the multiplication of it. I don't know what they call it, but let me just call it mol. Okay, so you can change your logic here. You can say mol, all right? And instead of plus, we are now doing multiplication. Do you understand? So when we run this, it's going to be multiplying and not adding again. So we are going to get, okay, do you know why we got 0? Do you know why we got the answer as 0? Because the initial value was 0. So 0 times whatever we are getting, anything times 0 will always be 0. But since you want to do something like multiplication, the initial value should be 1, because 1 times that number will still be the number. So we run without debugging, and we got the correct answer, 120. Okay, so this is how it goes. So you start with 0, you ask each number in the array. For as it's adding, all right, it is storing it in the accumulator. All right. So multiply all numbers. This is what I just showed you now. That's what we just did. The product, sorry, yes, this is the product. So that's what we just did. All right. But now the initial value is now 1. All right. Because if you start with 0, everything will be 0, because 0 times anything is 0. All right. So the next one, let us find the maximum value. You remember in the last session, we actually did this maximum value. We did sum, we did maximum value, and we wrote plenty line of codes. But look at plenty lines of code. So, but if we were to do this thing with the reduce method, it's going to be very simple. All right. So look at it. We want to find the maximum value. We have our array, and we have our accumulator, and we say that the initial value is going to be the first item, the first element in that array. Then we are now going to say, our logic is, if num is greater than accumulator, that means if the current number being iterated is greater than what is in our accumulator, okay, let me go to code so that I can explain it better. Okay, let me go to code so that I can explain it better. So we still have our stuff here. So we have our array, and right now we are looking for the maximum value. So I'll call this thing mass, and I'll call this thing mass. So what will be our initial value? Our initial value is going to be the first element in that array. So I'll say nums, the first array, which is 0 index. So, and I'm saying here, all right, I want to return this. I will say, if accumulator is greater than the current element that we are iterating, return if the accumulator is greater than the current element we are iterating, return the accumulator, else return the element. Okay, let me check this code and see. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not returning the element. I should return the accumulator, not the element. Okay, sorry, because now let me show you the logic here. Not the, sorry. Oh, I think I got it. My logic is correct. Here they said num greater than accumulator, and okay, so my logic is correct. Sorry, my logic is correct. I'm saying if the accumulator is greater than the element, that means it is the maximum. Okay, so look at the whole thing here. We are starting and we said our accumulator is the first element. So our accumulator now, the first item we have in this array is 1. So our accumulator will be 1, right? Okay, so when we now have accumulator as 1, so we are iterating the first element, which is 1. We are going to say accumulator, if accumulator is greater than, accumulator is 1, 1 is also, the element is also 1. So is accumulator greater than 1? 1 is not greater than 1, which is false. So, which is false. So the element we are not returning the element, which is 1. So this 1 will be stored in the accumulator. All right. Then we now come again. The element is 2. Our accumulator is 1. We now go and say, is 1 greater than the element? Is 1 greater than 2? Which is what? False. So our element will be returned, which is now 2. So 2 will be stored in this accumulator. We will come again. The element is 3. Our accumulator is 2. Is our accumulator, which is 2, greater than 3? No. That means we will return the element, which is 3. So we'll do this thing until we go through all of them, and our maximum value is going to be 5. All right, you see we got 5. So, but if, let me assume we have 11 here, we have 8 here. All right, let me just miss it. We have 20. Okay, we have 42 here. All right, if I run, it's still going, the maximum we have here is 42. So it's going to give us 42. All right. So, but I want you to understand this logic here. I want you to understand the logic here. All right. The next one we'll take a look is um, counting occurrences in an array. Okay. This could be tricky, but let's take a look at it. All right. So we have this array: apple, banana, all of them. So we are being asked to count the occurrences. We are being asked to count the occurrences of this. This could be very, very advanced too. So if you don't understand it, no problem. So, but what I'm going to do is this. I'm just going to copy the code, okay? Pardon me to copy the code so that I'll just explain the code for you. Um, Oops, I ended my presentation. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the code, all right? And I will bring it here. Oops, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Let me copy it again. I copy it and I come here. Okay, so look at it. We have this array, apple, banana, whatever, and we have banana 2, we have apple 2. Then we are using the reduce method, and we have our callback function, and we have our initial value. Our initial value is an empty object. Now, this is just the algorithm. All right, this might be, I don't know, should I even leave this example? All right, I'm going to leave this example, all right, so that I don't cause more confusion. But once you get to this session, and if you get to here and you want to understand this logic, chat me up. Let me not cause more confusion. You don't need this. This is really advanced. Okay, let me not cause more confusion here. All right, because this could be very, very tricky. So if you want me to explain this thing one-on-one, please just chat me up so that I can explain it to you. Okay. All right, so this is where we will end this class. It has been a very lengthy one, and in case you do not understand some, just go and rewatch it. Just go and rewatch it. Okay. Thank you very much, and I would see you in the next session. Okay.